I thought I'd found peace in her eyes. Now I don't even know her real last name. She said she just needed help starting over. I didn't think that meant stealing everything I had. She kissed me goodnight in Davao. I woke up alone. No wallet. No phone. No woman. The sunrise that morning was perfect. Too perfect. I should have known. Rowena was sitting on the edge of our hotel bed, already dressed, sipping instant coffee from the little packets they leave on the nightstand. "Good morning, my love," she whispered, turning to smile at me. That smile. God, that smile could make me forget my own name. Today we celebrate, yes, our future together. I pulled her close, still drunk on the idea that someone like her could want someone like me. A 65-year-old broken-down HVAC guy from Jersey. "What do you want to celebrate, sweetheart?" I asked, kissing her neck. She tasted like coconut and hope. "Our business, Arnie. Remember? The Sorry store? Today I register it officially." "Right. The business." I'd already transferred 40,000 pesos yesterday. Another 40 today wouldn't hurt, would it? Not if it meant seeing her this happy. We walked to the hotel rooftop that morning, her hand in mine, and ordered mango smoothies. She kept laughing at everything I said, even my terrible jokes about the traffic in Davao. "You are so funny, Arnie. This is why I love you." "Love." She said love. I felt my chest tighten with something I hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. "I love you too, Rowena, more than you know." She reached across the table and touched my cheek. "This trip means the world to me. You mean the world to me." I pulled out my phone right there, opened the banking app, and sent another 20,000 pesos to her account. "For your dreams, baby. Whatever you need." Her eyes went wide. "Arnie, no, this is too much." But she didn't stop me from hitting send. She never stopped me. The truth is, I'd been lonely for so long that when Rowena appeared in my life, I thought God was finally answering prayers I'd stopped believing in. We met 11 months earlier at the money exchange counter in Manila Airport. I was fumbling with conversion rates, completely lost, when this beautiful woman in a simple white dress stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir, but that man is trying to cheat you." She pointed to the money changer who was shortchanging me by about $30. "Come, I show you better place." I followed her like a lost puppy, grateful for any human kindness after the longest flight of my life. "Thank you," I said after she helped me get a fair rate. "I'm Arnold, from New Jersey." She smiled that smile. "Rowena, from Tagum City. You are here alone?" I nodded, feeling the weight of that word. Alone. "Me too," she said softly. "Would you like some coffee? I know a nice place." That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into daily text messages. Daily messages turned into video calls. Video calls turned into me booking another ticket to Manila 2 months later, then another, then another. By the 6th month, I was spending more time in the Philippines than in my empty apartment back home. "You make me feel alive again, Rowena," I told her during one of our late-night talks. We were walking along Baywalk, the sunset painting everything golden. "In America, I am nobody, just another old man waiting to die. But here with you, I feel like I matter." She stopped walking and turned to face me. "You do matter, Arnie. To me, you matter so much." When she kissed me that night, I knew I was done for. Completely, hopelessly done for. I told her everything. About my ex-wife who cleaned out our savings before the divorce papers were even signed. About my son who stopped taking my calls after I missed his graduation because I was working 3 jobs to pay for his college. About the heart pills I have to take because my chest feels like it's crushing inward most nights. About the apartment that echoes because I never learned how to fill the silence. "I am sorry, Arnie," she would whisper, holding me close. "You deserve better. You deserve love." And I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. But then things started changing. Little things at first. New handbags that looked expensive. Designer sandals I'd never seen before. Hair done at salons that charged more than my monthly electric bill back home. "Where did you get these beautiful shoes?" I asked one evening as we walked through Robinson's Mall in Manila. She glanced down at the red leather heels, then back at me with a slight frown. "My sister sends from Dubai. She works there, has good job." I nodded, but something felt off. Last month she told me her sister worked in a hotel in Cebu. That's nice of her to send you such expensive gifts. Rowena's jaw tightened. They are not expensive, just normal shoes. But I'd seen the same brand in the store window with a price tag that made my eyes water. Of course, baby. I'm just saying they look beautiful on you. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes like it used to. The phone calls started getting weird too. Late at night, her phone would buzz and she'd glance at it, frown, then excuse herself. Sorry, Arnie, this is my mother. She worries about me. But I could hear her speaking fast, agitated, in Tagalog that sounded nothing like the gentle words she used with her family when I was around. One night I woke up at 3 a.m. and her side of the bed was empty. I found her on the hotel balcony, whispering harshly into her phone. When she saw me, she hung up immediately. Who was that? I asked. Nobody. Just someone trying to sell something. She came back to bed, but she didn't curl up against me like she usually did. She lay there, stiff, staring at the ceiling until morning. The Davao trip was supposed to fix everything. Let us go somewhere special, just you and me, she said, her arms around my neck, that smile back in full force. I know beautiful place in Davao. We can be alone, plan our future. Our future. I loved the sound of that. I booked us the nicest hotel I could afford, upgraded to the suite with the ocean view. I wanted everything to be perfect for her, for us. You spoil me too much, Arnie, she said as we checked in, but she was already exploring the marble bathroom, testing the jetted tub. Nothing is too much for you, sweetheart. You deserve the world. And I meant it. After years of my ex-wife telling me I wasn't enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't anything enough, Rowena made me feel like I could move mountains. But Davao felt different from the start. She spent more time on her phone than talking to me. During dinner at the hotel restaurant, she kept texting someone while I tried to tell her about the sunset we'd watched that afternoon. Sorry, what did you say? She asked, not looking up from her screen. I was talking about how beautiful the sunset was, how beautiful you looked watching it. She glanced up briefly, gave me a distracted smile, then went back to typing. Yes, very beautiful, Arnie. I watched her fingers fly across the screen, wondering who could be so important that they were stealing my time with her. Is everything okay? You seem worried about something. She looked up then, irritation flashing in her eyes. Everything is fine. Why you always worry? I am just checking on my children. The next night, she said she needed to go to the pharmacy. I have headache, need some medicine. I offered to go with her, but she shook her head. No, you rest. I will be quick. 2 hours. She was gone for 2 hours. When she came back, she was walking slightly unsteady, and I could smell alcohol on her breath. Did you find medicine for your headache? She glared at me like I'd accused her of murder. Yes, I found medicine. And I met old friend, we have one drink. Is that okay with you? Her tone was sharp, cutting. Of course it's okay. I was just worried when you were gone so long. She threw her purse on the dresser harder than necessary. I am not child, Arnie. You think I am your maid? Your property? The words hit me like a slap. No, of course not. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... You didn't mean what? To control me? To watch me like prison guard? I felt my chest tighten, not from my heart condition but from fear that I was losing her. I'm sorry, baby, you're right. I worry too much. I pulled out my wallet and handed her 10,000 pesos. Here, for your friend. For whatever you need. I just want you to be happy. She stared at the money for a long moment, then took it. Thank you, she said quietly. I go shower now. That was our last real conversation. The next morning, I woke up and she was gone. At first, I thought she'd gone down for breakfast, but her suitcase wasn't by the closet anymore. Her makeup bag was missing from the bathroom counter. All her clothes were gone from the drawers where she'd carefully folded them just 2 days before. I threw on clothes and ran downstairs to the front desk, my heart hammering against my ribs. Excuse me, did you see my girlfriend this morning, Rowena? She was staying in room 412 with me. The clerk, a young man with kind eyes, looked uncomfortable. Sir, the lady checked out at 3 a.m. She said you knew. 3 in the morning. While I was sleeping off the wine from dinner, she was packing her life and walking away from mine. Did she say where she was going? My voice sounded pathetic, even to me. The clerk shook his head. No, sir. Sorry. She just returned one key card and left. I stumbled back upstairs, hoping maybe I was wrong. Maybe she'd just gone out early and would be back. But when I looked for my wallet to call a taxi to search for her, it was gone. My phone was gone. My passport was gone. Everything. I stood there in that empty hotel room, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and felt something break inside me that I don't think will ever heal. She hadn't just left. She'd erased me. I spent the next 6 hours in the hotel lobby, begging strangers to let me use their phones. The hotel manager took pity on me and let me call the American embassy, but they couldn't do anything until Monday. It was Saturday. Do you have any other form of identification, sir? I had nothing. Nothing but the clothes on my back and a heart that felt like it had been put through a blender. I tried calling Rowena's number from the hotel phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Her voice, still sweet, still loving. Hi, you've reached Rowena. Leave message and I call you back. I hung up before the beep. What was I supposed to say? Please come back and rob me some more? A small cafe down the street had free Wi-Fi, and the owner let me sit there for hours nursing a single cup of coffee while I tried to piece together what had happened. I logged into my email, hoping for some message from Rowena, some explanation, some apology. Instead, I found something worse. A receipt from a dress shop, a bridal shop, purchased 3 days before our Davao trip, under my name. Charged to the credit card I'd given her for emergencies. The dress cost 45,000 pesos. More than I spent on my own wedding 30 years ago. I stared at that receipt until the words blurred together. She'd bought a wedding dress, but I'd never proposed. We'd never even talked about marriage beyond her vague mentions of our future together. Sir, you okay? The cafe owner was standing beside my table, concern written across her weathered face. You look very sad. I tried to smile, tried to pretend I was fine, but the words came out as a whisper. I think someone I loved very much was planning a wedding with someone else. She sat down across from me without asking. Ah, Filipino girlfriend? I nodded, ashamed of how obvious my situation must be. You are not first foreigner who sits in my cafe with broken heart. Last month, Australian man. Before that, German. Same story, same tears. She patted my hand with the familiarity of someone who'd comforted too many broken men. But you know what I tell them? Better to know now than after marriage? Yes? I was still sitting in that cafe when I saw her. Or thought I did. A flash of long black hair getting into a jeepney at the corner. My heart lurched and I ran outside, chasing the vehicle down the street like a madman. Rowena! Rowena, wait! But when the jeepney stopped at a red light and I caught up, it was a stranger. A young woman who looked at me with alarm as I panted and stared at her through the window. Sorry. I gasped. I thought you were someone else. The woman's companion, a young man with protective eyes, said something sharp in Tagalog. I backed away, realizing how I must look. A crazy old American chasing Filipino women down the street. I walked back to the cafe, defeated, and the owner was waiting with a fresh cup of coffee. You saw a ghost? She asked gently. Something like that, I replied. The next morning, I went back to the hotel to see if there was any CCTV footage of Rowena leaving. Maybe if I could see which direction she went, I could find her. I could get some answers. The manager was sympathetic but firm. Sir, we cannot show security footage to guests, but I can tell you what I saw. He gestured for me to sit in the lobby. The lady, she left with someone. Young man on motorcycle. They seemed familiar. Like they know each other long time. The words hit me like a physical blow. Another man. Of course there was another man. Probably the person she'd been texting all those nights when she thought I was asleep. Probably the person she'd been talking to at 3 a.m. on the hotel balcony. Did you see his face? The manager shook his head. Was dark. But he was young. Maybe 25, 30 years old. Young. Of course he was young. I spent another day wandering Davao like a zombie, checking every hotel, every restaurant, every shopping mall where we'd been together, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. I asked taxi drivers if they'd seen a woman matching her description. I showed her photo to street vendors and hotel clerks. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished into thin air, or more accurately, like she'd never existed at all. By Tuesday, I gave up searching and focused on getting home. The embassy issued me a temporary travel document, and I booked the first available flight back to Manila. As the plane took off from Davao, I looked down at the city where my heart had been shattered and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. At least now I knew the truth. Back in Manila, I checked into a small pension house near the airport. I had enough money left in my checking account for a few days while I figured out my next move. I could fly back to New Jersey, back to my empty apartment and my empty life, but something inside me rebelled against the idea. I'd come to the Philippines looking for something, and even though I'd been robbed blind, I wasn't sure I was ready to give up on finding it. On my last night in that tiny room, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I sent Rowena one final message from a borrowed phone. I hope he loves you like I did. I hit send before I could change my mind, then deleted her contact information, her photos. Everything except one. A picture I'd taken of her laughing in the sunlight outside a coconut vendor in Manila, her eyes bright with what I'd thought was love but now knew was probably just good acting. The government office in Manila felt like purgatory. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, plastic chairs that made your back ache, and the smell of old air conditioning mixed with desperation. I was there to get a temporary travel document, sitting next to other men who looked just as broken as I felt. The officer behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, had seen it all before. "You're not the first Kano to come in heartbroken," she said matter-of-factly while processing my paperwork. "Last week Scottish man, month before German. Always same story." Her words should have made me feel less alone, but somehow they made it worse. I wasn't special. I was just another fool in a very long line of fools. While waiting for my documents, a man with a thick Scottish accent sat down beside me. He looked like he'd been sleeping in his clothes for days. "First time getting robbed by a Filipina girlfriend?" he asked, not unkindly. I nodded, too embarrassed to speak. He laughed, but it was hollow, bitter. "Third time for me. Lost 2 million pesos to a girl who said she loved me. Turned out she was married to a cop in Cebu. Had 3 kids and a house I was paying for without knowing it." He pulled out his phone and showed me photos. A beautiful young woman with a baby on her hip. "This is her. Maria. Or at least, that's what she told me her name was. Found out later it was actually Rosa, and the baby wasn't even hers. Borrowed it from her sister for the photos." I stared at the picture, seeing Rowena's practiced smile reflected in this stranger's face. "How do you do it? How do you trust anyone again?" The Scottish man shrugged. "You don't. You just get smarter about who you don't trust." He offered to buy me coffee, and we walked to a small cafe near the government building. "The thing is," he said, stirring sugar into his cup, "they're not all like that. I've got Filipino friends, good people, honest people, but the ones who target us old foreign guys, they've got it down to a science. They know exactly what we want to hear. They know we're lonely, we're desperate to feel needed, and we've got more money than sense." He pulled out a notebook filled with handwriting. "I've been documenting everything. All the lies, all the red flags I ignored. Want to know what your girl was probably doing when she disappeared for hours at a time?" I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I nodded anyway. "Meeting with her real boyfriend. The young guy on the motorcycle. They probably laughed about us. About how easy we were to manipulate." The words hit like physical blows, but I needed to hear them. I needed to understand. "She bought a wedding dress," I said quietly, 3 days before she robbed me. 45,000 pesos. The Scottish man whistled low. "Expensive dress for a woman who wasn't planning to marry you. But I bet she's married someone by now. Probably the motorcycle guy. Your money probably paid for their wedding." The thought made me sick, but it also made sense. Everything made terrible, perfect sense. The business she wanted to start. The sorry store. Probably real, he said. But not for her. For him. For their life together. You were just the bank. I laughed, surprising myself. It wasn't a happy laugh, but it wasn't bitter either. It was the laugh of a man finally understanding a joke that everyone else had been in on from the beginning. That night, in my pension house room, I called my ex-wife. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear a familiar voice, even if it was the voice of someone who'd also taken everything from me. "Arnold?" She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" I almost hung up. Almost pretended it was a mistake. But then I heard myself talking. I got robbed, Linda, in the Philippines, by someone I thought loved me. There was a long pause. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. Are you hurt? The kindness in her voice broke something in me. This woman who'd hated me enough to clean out our bank accounts was showing more compassion than Rowena ever had. Just financially. And emotionally, I guess. Another pause. Do you need money to get home? I started crying then. Actually crying, for the first time since waking up alone in that Davao hotel room. No. I can get home. I don't know why I called. You called because you needed to hear that someone gives a damn about you, Linda said softly. And despite everything between us, I do. I really do. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of that narrow bed and thought about love. Real love versus performed love. Linda and I had fought constantly those last years, but even at our worst, she'd never pretended to be someone she wasn't. She'd been angry, bitter, resentful, but she'd been genuinely angry, genuinely bitter, genuinely herself. Rowena had never been genuine about anything. Every smile, every kiss, every I love you had been calculated, designed to extract maximum money for minimum emotional investment. In a strange way, Linda's honest hatred had been more loving than Rowena's fake devotion. The next morning, I went back to the cafe where I'd met the Scottish man. He was there again, writing in his notebook. Back for more punishment? He asked, with a wry smile. I sat down across from him. I want to know everything. Every trick, every lie, every red flag I should have seen. He looked at me carefully. You sure? Once you know how the magic trick works, you can never be fooled by it again. But you also can't enjoy the show. I thought about Rowena's laugh in the sunlight, how beautiful it had seemed when I thought it was real. I'd rather know the truth than live in a beautiful lie. He nodded and opened his notebook. Then let's start with lesson 1. When a beautiful woman approaches you at the airport and offers to help, that's not coincidence. That's hunting. For 2 hours, he walked me through the playbook. The initial approach, always helpful and innocent. The gradual escalation of intimacy. The sob stories about family problems that require money. The constant validation and praise that make you feel like a king. The strategic withdrawal of affection when you start asking questions. The final robbery, always when you're most vulnerable. They work in teams, he explained. Rowena wasn't freelancing, she had backup. Probably the motorcycle guy, maybe others. They scope out targets at the airport, share information, coordinate stories. It's a business. I felt like an idiot, but also strangely relieved. At least I wasn't uniquely stupid. I was just another victim of a professional operation. The worst part, the Scottish man continued, is that some of them are so good at their job that they start believing their own performance. I think Maria actually convinced herself she cared about me, at least a little. That's what makes it so effective. They're not just lying to us. They're lying to themselves. I thought about the moments when Rowena's mask had slipped, the irritation when I asked too many questions, the coldness when she thought I wasn't looking. Maybe those were the only times I'd seen the real her. Do you think she felt anything for me? Anything real? He shrugged. Does it matter? The result is the same either way. But it did matter to me. Because if Rowena had felt nothing, then I was just another mark in a long con. But if she'd felt something, even briefly, then maybe what we'd had wasn't completely fake. Maybe for a moment, in some small way, it had been real. I knew it was pathetic to hope for that, but I couldn't help myself. Even knowing the truth, part of me still wanted to believe that her smile in the sunshine had meant something. 3 months later, I'm back in New Jersey, but I'm different now, quieter, more careful. The neighbors think I'm depressed, and maybe I am, but it's not the crushing depression I expected. It's more like clarity. For the first time in my life, I see things as they really are instead of how I want them to be. My son called last week, the first time in 2 years. Dad, I heard you went to the Philippines. Are you okay? I almost told him everything, but then I realized he didn't need to carry my mistakes. I'm fine, son. Just took a trip. Learned some things about myself. There was a pause. Good things? I thought about Rowena's smile that morning in Davao, how perfect and false it had been. How I'd known something was wrong but chose to believe in the fairy tale instead. Necessary things, I said finally. My son surprised me by asking if he could visit. I've been thinking about what you said at Mom's funeral, about how we never really talked after I grew up. Maybe it's time we fix that. I felt my chest tighten, but this time it wasn't my heart condition. It was hope. Careful, cautious hope, but hope nonetheless. I'd like that, I said. I'd like that very much. When he hung up, I realized that losing Rowena had given me something unexpected. It had forced me to reach out to Linda, to be honest about my loneliness and pain, and somehow that honesty had opened a door I thought was permanently closed. I still think about her sometimes. Wonder if she's happy with her young man on the motorcycle. Wonder if she's opened that sorry store she talked about, or if that was just another story she told to make me feel needed. Wonder if she thinks about me at all, or if I was just a number in a ledger of broken foreign hearts. But mostly, I think about how close I came to marrying her. How if she'd played the game just a little longer, I would have proposed, and she would have said yes, and I would have brought her back to New Jersey to live in my empty apartment. The thought terrifies me more than the money she stole ever could. At least this way, I kept my freedom, even if it cost me my savings and my pride. The funny thing is, I'm not angry anymore. Hurt, yes. Embarrassed, absolutely, but not angry. Rowena needed something, and I needed something, and for a while we both got what we needed from each other. She needed money, and I needed to feel loved. The problem was, only one of us was honest about what we were really trading. I don't hate her for that. I pity her, maybe. It must be exhausting, keeping track of all those stories, all those performances, always having to be what someone else wants you to be instead of just being yourself. I may be alone, but at least I'm alone as myself, not as a character I'm playing for someone else's benefit. Last week, I got an unexpected message on Facebook. From Linda, "Saw your son is coming to visit. I'm proud of you for reaching out to him." That took courage. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. "Thank you, for everything. Even the hard parts." She wrote back immediately. "The hard parts made us who we are. Don't let one bad experience in the Philippines make you afraid to live, Arnold. You deserve love. Real love. Just be smarter about recognizing it next time. Real love. I'm still learning what that looks like. Maybe it's my son calling to rebuild our relationship. Maybe it's my ex-wife showing kindness despite our painful history. Maybe it's the Scottish man sharing his story to help a stranger avoid his mistakes. Maybe real love isn't about passion and butterflies and perfect sunlit moments. Maybe it's about people who show up when you're broken and help you figure out how to heal. Sometimes late at night, when the apartment feels particularly empty, I look at that photo of her laughing in the sunlight, and for just a moment, I let myself remember what it felt like to believe that laugh was meant for me. Then I put the phone away and make myself a cup of coffee, and I sit by the window watching the sun come up over Jersey City, grateful for the view, grateful to be home, grateful to be broke but not broken. Because the truth is, I did find peace in her eyes, even if it was built on lies, and maybe that's enough. Maybe learning to see the difference between real love and performed love is worth 60,000 pesos and a broken heart. Maybe I'm finally ready to find someone who wants to love the real me, not the me with the open wallet. Or maybe I'm ready to be alone without feeling lonely. Either way, I know now that I'm stronger than I thought. Strong enough to survive betrayal. Strong enough to start over. Strong enough to wake up in an empty hotel room and find my way home. Strong enough to believe that someday, somewhere, someone will look at me with genuine love in their eyes instead of dollar signs, and when that happens, I'll know the difference.